How much do you need to invest for a comfy retirement? It's really about figuring out two things: how much you'll spend each year after you stop working, and how long your retirement might last. Sounds like a bit of a guessing game, but don't worry, it's not as complicated as it seems. Financial experts have come up with some pretty handy ways to figure this out, so you don't end up running out of money. And the best part, you don't need to be a math whiz or go through complex life expectancy charts to get these answers. In this video, I am going to show you 3 different methods to estimate how much you might spend when you retire. I will also go through some personal factors to consider in your retirement planning. Alright, so the first method to figure out how much you need for a comfortable retirement is what I like to call the 80% rule. The idea is that most retirees can live comfortably on about 80% of what they were earning before they retired. Why 80%? Well, when you retire, you stop paying certain things. Think about those Medicare and Social Security taxes or contributions to your 401k or IRA that you were making while working. All of that stops once you retire. Plus, you're not shelling out cash for things like commuting to work or that weekly trip to the dry cleaners anymore. And let's say you manage to pay off your mortgage and other debts before you retire. That means you can live on even less. Let's break it down with an example. Say you're earning $100,000 a year before retirement. According to the 80% rule, you'd need about $80,000 per year in retirement to maintain a similar lifestyle. Part of that will come from Social Security benefits, maybe a pension or an annuity. But for most people, a big chunk will need to come from personal savings like a 401k or IRA. Imagine your annual income from Social Security and a pension comes to $30,000 after taxes. If you're sticking to the $80,000 a year plan, that means you'll need to pull in an extra $50,000 per year. Assuming an inflation rate of 4% and a modest after-tax return of 5%, you'd be aiming to save about $1.3 million to fund a 30-year retirement starting at age 67. This pot of savings should generate around $50,000 a year in income. All right, the next method, 10 times your annual salary by age 67 rule. This approach takes a bit of a different angle compared to the 80% rule. According to this rule, you might not need as much as 80% of your pre-retirement income. Instead, to maintain a lifestyle similar to what you had in the decade before retiring, aiming for a 45% income replacement could be enough. To hit this target, here are some age-based savings goals. Here's how it breaks down. By age 30, aim to have 1 times your annual salary saved. By 35, shoot for 2 times your salary. By 40, you should be at 3 times. At 45, aim for 4 times your salary. By 50, try to have 6 times. By 55, you should be at 7 times your salary. And at 60, aim for 8 times. And by 67, you want to hit 10 times your annual salary. The idea is that if you start saving at 25 and consistently put away 15% of your annual income, investing it in a mix of stocks and bonds suitable for your age, you can hit these targets. The general strategy is to be more stock-heavy when you're younger and gradually shift towards bonds and cash as you get closer to retirement for added stability. Now, if you're dreaming of an above-average retirement lifestyle where you spend about 55% of your pre-retirement income, you will need to aim for 12 times your income saved by age 67. And of course, this target could vary depending on when you plan to start taking Social Security benefits or if you're expecting a longer than average retirement. Okay, here's the third method for estimating your retirement needs: the 4% rule. This one's been around since the 1990s and was backed by research from investment gurus at Morningstar. So what's the 4% rule all about? Basically, it says that in your first year of your retirement, you can safely withdraw 4% of your entire portfolio. Then for each following year, you adjust your withdrawals for inflation. The idea is that your investments should earn enough to keep you ahead of inflation, ensuring you don't run out of money under most market conditions. It sounds pretty straightforward, but remember, this rule works best when inflation is low and the markets are doing well. If you hit a period of high inflation or poor market returns, you might need to cut back on how much you're spending. To figure out how much you need to save, you multiply your projected annual spending by the number of years you expect to be retired. Let's put this into an example. Say you need $60,000 a year, and you think you'll be retired for 25 years. That means you should aim to save around $1.5 million. According to Vanguard's retirement calculator, there's about a 95% chance your savings will last if you invest half of your portfolio in stocks, 30% in bonds, and the rest in cash. Smash that like button if you're enjoying the video. All right, your personal situation plays a huge role in fine-tuning your retirement savings target, and there are some personal factors that you must consider to figure out your magic number. First factor is your post-retirement plans. Are you dreaming of traveling the world or perhaps setting up an inheritance for your children? If that's the case, you might need to save more than the standard guidelines suggest. You've got to account for expenses that go beyond the everyday stuff. On the flip side, maybe you're planning to downsize, move to a more affordable city, or cut back on expenses in other ways when you retire. If that sounds like you might get by with less in your retirement fund. Now, where you decide to spend your retirement years can make a big difference too. The cost of living varies a lot depending on where you are. Like retiring in New York is going to cost way more than, say, a smaller city or even overseas. If you're planning to stay where you are, you probably have a good idea about local costs like dining out, healthcare, and other daily expenses. But if you're thinking about moving, it's worth taking an extended trip to that place. Get a feel for the lifestyle, maybe chat with a real estate agent, and really understand what living there will cost. Next up, we have another critical factor: your retirement spending. You have to be really specific about your spending projections. Start by looking closely at your current monthly expenses and think about how these might change once you retire. For instance, those commuting costs? They'll probably disappear. But on the other hand, your healthcare spending might go up as you get older. These kinds of shifts in expenses are important to factor in. Another big thing to consider is debt. If you can, try to pay off or refinance your mortgage, car loan, or any other debts while you're still working. Heading into retirement debt-free can give you a lot more breathing room in your budget. It means you have more flexibility even if you're living on a fixed income. Also, think about any big expenses coming up. Maybe you've got kids heading to college soon, or there's a major home repair on the horizon. If you own your own home, doing a thorough assessment to identify any large projects is a smart move. Things like renovations or a roof replacement are much easier to handle while you've still got a regular income. The goal is to tackle these big expenses now so they don't eat into your retirement savings later. Last but not least, another important factor is deciding when to retire. The timing of your retirement plays a big role in how much you need to save. It's tough to pinpoint exactly how many years of retirement you need to fund, but you can make a pretty good guess. Look at your family's health history and the general data on life expectancy. For instance, the average 50-year-old American man can expect to live about 28 more years, while a woman might expect around 33 more years. Then there's the question of Social Security. When do you plan to start taking those benefits? For someone retiring at 65, Social Security replaces about 30 to 50% of their earlier earnings. And remember, the longer you wait to start collecting, up to age 70, the higher your benefits will be. So when planning your retirement savings, think carefully about when you want to retire and when to start collecting Social Security. These decisions can significantly impact how much you need to save to enjoy those retirement years to the fullest. To retire comfortably, you'll want to avoid these 7 mistakes that most people make, so watch this video next.